For years, the leadership at Harmony Bible Church had talked about moving into the various communities surrounding Danville. As the church began to grow, the Lord just really laid on the elder's heart that now is the time.
There are so many people here that need to hear the gospel. It's a monumental task to get them 14 minutes straight west when you never leave Burlington proper. We were good at looking all around the world, but a little bit east, if we're fishers of men, there's a pond chock full of very hungry, needy fish.
We were at that time right in the middle of a study of the Gospel of Matthew. The vision came from God's Word, and the way that we came to that decision was just wrestling with what is the application of what we see here and what Jesus is teaching, what Jesus is modeling. We actually began with a maple leaf.
And we'd been crawling through old schools, trying to find this location. What's the location? And we actually just sat in front of the old Aldi building here on Maple Street, and we were praying and just looked at that bar across the street, and it was, the Lord likes redeeming things. All I remember is somebody saying that, maybe there should be a youth center there. Yes, this is, I could see the kids are already here. There is a need, and we have resources, and we have the gospel.
We, of course, had to look for a location. We decided to go with Aldo Leopold because that was a temporary location, kind of let us get our feet wet here. Honestly, I was overwhelmed by the positive response. We had almost 300 people there on the first Sunday, and those who stayed in Danville were very generous in getting behind this. We were able to raise the money for the launch very, very quickly. Probably the most necessary ingredient for a campus is a campus pastor, someone to be the leader. I can't state how huge it was that Nathan was willing to do that.
When Chris Carr asked me to be campus pastor, I was like, no, you're crazy. No, I'm a construction worker. But he didn't give up. I was challenged. Have you really prayed about this? And, I hadn't because I was scared. So I went back and I said, you know what? I still feel inadequate. But with the help of God, I will do my best to perform whatever you want me to do as a campus pastor. Turning a school into a church every Sunday morning was just the craziest thing ever.
We had a trailer that was packed full with custom-made carts, and we would back the trailer right up to the door, and children's ministry would grab their carts, tech would grab their carts, and there was no way you could do it by yourself. You had to be interacting with people. You had to be having conversations. You had to be working together.
Hey, it's your second Sunday here. We set up and tear down. There's a
Welcome
rack
aboard.
and some chairs. Here's a job.
It was neat to see people who hadn't been serving at the church just dive right in. There was 4 of us who were the core ministry team for the children to kind of keep it all going. That was well established before we started because of knowing that we were going to kind of head up the children's ministry. But until we were in the building, we couldn't, really make huge plans because it seemed like every Sunday we were like, okay, we need to adjust this and this and this.
I remember troubleshooting, and we had issues with the video, and I'm running sound at the same time, so I'm reaching over the cart and pushing the buttons on the soundboard while swapping wires on the back for the video feed, just so that we can have the video in time for the message. It was chaos. And honestly, those are some of the most fun Sundays.
Sometimes I remember Chris Carr's sermon would just, blank out. And Nathan Williams would get this terrified look, and he'd bring the paper. I will just read the rest of Chris Carr's sermon now. That was the backup plan.
It was amazing how well we worked together, how efficient the team became, how close everybody became.
I look back on those days really fondly. Maybe I look back more fondly than others because I wasn't actually setting up and tearing down. But I'm so thankful for the people who made that go. They've made a huge, huge difference.
It's a whole bunch of new people just starting out, so trying to just make people feel welcome.
Nathan Williams literally stopped us and said, hey, my name's Nathan Williams. We haven't seen you guys here before. And it just felt so natural.
People genuinely wanted to get to know us, which was amazing. No one would ever want to know me.
I believed in Jesus, but I did not fully understand what that looked like, what that relationship should be like.
The gospel had gotten into my head, but it hadn't really gotten into my heart. I could give the right answers if you asked certain questions, but it wasn't something that had really transformed my character or my behavior?
Well, for the first service, it was Easter Sunday, so it was packed. I grew up thinking that if I was good, I would get into heaven. And the question that Chris Carr asked, and I'll never forget it, he asked, "Do you know how to get into heaven?" I have never had anyone say that to me, ask that question so directly, and I've always questioned, like, if I would go to heaven. And so I was like, how do I get into heaven? You know, he said, there's nothing that you can do to get into heaven. You just place your faith in Jesus, and he accepts you, and he welcomes you into a relationship with him. I could actually rest and lay down my sins and my brokenness at his feet and let him take care of the rest.
Craig Smith and I were actually in this building, Tom's, a couple of years before we actually purchased it. You know, our discussion was, oh man, it would be great to have this facility, but it was just not even feasible at that time. So we looked at lots of other options, and a couple of years passed at this point. The Lord just really graciously and honestly, in some ways, miraculously got the situation to the point where we were able to buy this facility for much, much less than the previous asking price and much, much less than it was actually worth. Now, with this great facility that we have in the center of the city where people can get to, people can walk to. You really would have a hard time coming into this facility during a day of the week and not finding somebody doing something around our mission.
Being here in Burlington has given us the opportunity to serve the community in a bigger capacity. In Danville, before we moved here to Burlington, we had a food pantry. We served probably one family per month. Moving to Burlington, and 10 years later, we have a new food pantry, and we're seeing about 100 families per week.
I think it's become pretty evident to the community that we are here, that we're here to stay, and that we are here for the good of the city. So the growth, both numerically and spiritually, has been incredible. We've seen a lot of people saved, a lot of people baptized, a lot of people join the church. Our membership in Burlington has grown by several hundred. We see people being raised up and sent out. We see people being raised up in leadership. We see more and more people coming and serving the body and serving the community.
Yeah, I think all the opportunities to apply what we're learning, getting involved in children's ministry, getting involved in discipleship groups, to be able to dive in and be intentional and be more in God's Word.
Our time at Harmony has just been transformative. I just feel really thankful and blessed that God chose to continue pursuing us when for so long we never really gave him the time of day. Harmony has just become our home. If you wanted to know why we have stayed in Burlington, it's because of Harmony.
As we look back and we celebrate what God has done here in Burlington over the last decade, we also at the same time need to be looking forward to what he might be calling us to in the days ahead. The reality is that there's still tens of thousands of people both in Burlington and in the surrounding communities that need to be reached with the gospel. Let's continue to link arms together to make the sacrifices that we need so that the gospel can get to those who need it.